While the Luan test includes a requirement to show causation for standing, this is really not an issue in most cases. If the agency is acting against a regulated party, the regulated party's standing claim will include that whatever it's going to do in its litigation will change the agency action or stop the agency action. So we clearly have a causal relationship. Causation really becomes important when the plaintiffs are asking for something that will not necessarily change the final agency action. Most typically, this occurs in the procedural rights cases. While not in the book, there's an interesting case where the agency tried to avoid notice and comment rulemaking by saying that it wouldn't change the final rule that the agency would make if it took comments. The courts rejected this argument, saying that if the agency could just say that notice and comment rulemaking wouldn't affect its decisions, it could effectively gut the 553 requirement for rulemaking. Now, if the agency fails to carry out procedure correctly, then, as we've seen, say, for the environmental impact statement for a dam, the plaintiffs are first going to have to show that they have the classic Luan geographical nexus standing, that they have a member that will be affected by the dam, either for recreational interests or drainage interests. The causation problem they have, however, is that getting the procedure, having the hearing, and providing input very well may not change the agency's decision to build the dam. So for causation purposes in these procedural rights cases, the only thing the plaintiff has to show is that they have failed to have the hearing or other procedural participation, and that if they were able to do that, it could affect the decision, not that it will affect the decision. Some courts have confused the procedural rights standing analysis with a harmless error analysis. If we look back at civil procedure in 5 U.S.C. section 706, the court has to look at the error and see whether it had any reasonable chance of changing the final outcome. If not, then the error is ignored. However, since the process is the actual thing we're protecting in the procedural rights cases, it's not correct to apply this sort of but-for causation that is implied in 706. The court should just look at whether there's any chance that the process could affect the outcome. This sometimes becomes an issue in third-party actions with causation. We see the Simon versus Eastern Kentucky Welfare Rights Organization case where the plaintiffs want to increase the charity care that a hospital is delivering. And this is a not-for-profit hospital, and the IRS looks at the amount of charity care provided as one of the criteria for determining whether a hospital should keep its not-for-profit status. The plaintiffs are trying to intervene in that process and are arguing that the tax exemption should be removed, saying it will not the hospital's not delivering enough charity care. The problem with this is that if the tax exemption is removed, the hospital is likely to deliver even less charity care. So the final result the plaintiffs are looking for, removal of the not-for-profit status, will not actually remedy the problem that they are trying to deal with, which is providing more charity care. Now, I'm certain that the plaintiff's strategy is that the hospital really values not-for-profit status and is willing to try to increase its charity care in order to keep the not-for-profit status. But that's not what it can achieve through this lawsuit. So this case fails on causation. Now, we can also think about this as a redressability problem in that what they're seeking will not redress what they'd like to accomplish with their lawsuit. The relief doesn't have to fix the problem. In a lot of regulatory problems, plaintiffs are seeking policy changes that will incrementally improve the effectiveness of the agency action. In many situations, it would probably be impossible to completely cure the problem. We have a lot of communicable disease control programs for common communicable diseases. They're designed to reduce the prevalence of the disease in the community, but they certainly are not going to eradicate the disease. The same with most of the air pollution regulations. They are designed to reduce the level of the air pollutant in the air to improve the general health of the community. They're not intended to eliminate the air pollutant. This becomes a major issue in Massachusetts versus EPA, where some of the judges are wondering whether the plaintiff's requested remedy of regulation of greenhouse gases in the United States will really do much about climate changes. There's a general statement by the court in Luan that the redressability standard for procedural injuries is quite relaxed, that the right can be asserted without, as the court says, meeting all the normal standards for redressability and immediacy. If the plaintiff can make the causation step in a procedural rights case, then redressability is usually satisfied as well.